Coming up on FYI, what do US kids make of Donald Trump's re-election? The UK government's hopes for COP29, and shock news from the voice of Paddington.
Don't like marmalade, sorry.
Over the last 2 weeks, the global news is being dominated by Donald Trump's victory in the US presidential election. He leads the Republican Party, and he convincingly beat his Democrat rival Kamala Harris, winning all of the key battleground states which can often decide a US election. Donald Trump has already been president from 2017 to 2021, but he doesn't get the keys back to the White House just yet. He will be sworn in at the presidential inauguration ceremony on the 20th of January 2025. The US is one of the most powerful countries on earth, and what happens there affects the rest of the world. So there's been huge interest in the story and what Donald Trump's return to power might mean for the next 4 years. But what do young people in the US think of the result, and what do they want from their next president? Well, we visited a school in the Bronx, New York, to get reactions from the kids there.
I'm happy that Trump won because he did I feel like he did a good job running the country, and I want him to continue doing a good job so our country could be safe. And I feel like he have more experience, more good things.
I'm kind of disappointed in a way because I don't want some of my rights to be taken away, and I feel like either or some of them would be taken away. I don't want people to reject me for being a woman.
I really wanted Kamala to win. I wanted to see some history. First black woman to be a president for the United States.
I believe that Kamala Harris, as vice president, she didn't do as much as she's supposed to. I believe she tried to do as much as she could, but I feel like she didn't do as much.
I think people voted for Trump because of the immigration. Since now the border is open, there's a lot of immigrants coming in, and people feel like they're taking their jobs and stuff.
He is not really gonna bring the country together just for the fact that he just wants to be heard himself because he thinks that he's the president.
It really does scare me because people are saying that he's gonna start deporting people. I don't want to see anybody get hurt or die because of something that he's implementing to the country.
What issues do you want Trump to fix?
Inflation, because ever since Joe Biden became president, the prices skyrocketed.
It's just a good decision that people voted for him because he's gonna lower down taxes and make food less expensive.
I want him to address more of the racism that goes on in New York City because again, there's still a lot of racism going on.
I think that he has said a lot of racist things, especially about the immigrants. So I think that he is a little racist.
Trump said that climate change is a big thing in the world right now.
I feel like that's stupid. It's going to ruin the ecosystem, and animals are going to start going extinct because he doesn't think that's a problem. He's going to start funding oil companies. So I feel like with him saying that makes him someone irresponsible with our community.
In my opinion, it really doesn't worry me because climate changes all the time, so you can't do nothing about it.
I disagree because I feel like climate change is a big problem because the climate is changing and we should do something about it.
I really don't trust him because sometimes he'll just say stuff to win. I don't really trust him at all.
People actually believe in Trump. As president, he's representing all of us, America, to the world. That's our president. We should be able to trust him.
It's gonna be difficult to believe it until we see it, that he's making our world better again and that he's trying for us.
This video of a snowy owl carrying its chicks on its back while in flight has gone viral recently, with many people commenting on the rare footage. But is it real or fake? Find out later in the show. Now this week, world leaders have been gathering for the big annual meeting aimed at combating climate change and limiting global warming. It's called COP29, which stands for Conference of the Parties, and it's taking place in Baku, Azerbaijan. But to underline the size of the problem that the conference faces, the UN's World Meteorological Organization warned that 2024 is on track to be the Earth's warmest year on record. And they said that between 2014 and 2023, the world was on average 1.2 degrees warmer than it was during the late 19th century. This kind of increase might sound small, but scientists believe it can have devastating effects on our planet, like the melting of polar ice caps, rising sea levels, the destruction of ecosystems, and more extreme weather, such as the recent flooding in Spain that killed over 200 people. To find out more about COP29 and what it hopes to achieve, Scarlett met up with Ed Miliband, the government's head of energy security and net zero, before he travelled to Baku.
So can you tell me what you want to achieve at COP29 for the UK and for the rest of the world?
We're going to be announcing our climate target for 2035, and it's going to be ambitious and it's going to be aligned with 1.5 degrees. We want to work with other countries to make sure that poorer countries, developing countries, have the climate finance they need so that they can move into renewables and cheaper, cleaner forms of power. So they're the things that we'll be focusing on at COP29.
And how are you going to do those things? Because they're quite big things to say.
So we're going to be ambitious when it comes to our target, which means all of our power sources being either nuclear or renewables by 2030. We won't issue new oil and gas licenses. We then want to use, with the power of our example, saying that we're doing this is the leadership we're showing, join us and be part of this.
Donald Trump was recently re-elected as the President of the United States of America.
Yes.
And in the past, he's been heavily criticised for calling climate change a scam. So how do you plan on convincing him, that climate change is an issue?
The US and the UK are close allies, and obviously it's for the US population to elect its leaders, and we work with any government that's elected. And what we'll be doing with Trump is finding areas of common ground. You've got to respect the judgments that different countries make and who they elect as their leaders, and then you work together to find areas of common agreement where you can move forward.
No one's been able to change his mind, so why do you think that you'll be able to?
I think it's really, really important to see what happens when President Trump comes to power. We want to work with, all countries to move forward on this really, really important agenda.
Do we really need to be flying politicians in from all over the world for this meeting? I mean, it kind of counteracts the whole reason for the meeting. Can't it just be held online?
It seems on the surface that it does, but I think it is important, the COP. It's basically a moment when world leaders have the spotlight on them, and it puts them on the spot. It puts me on the spot. Yeah. I mean, maybe you'd be put on the spot a bit less on Zoom, You've got to then go and account to the world. Here's what Britain is doing.
So it wouldn't have the same effect if it was done online?
I don't think it would. Just give you one picture. People might say, well, what has COP ever achieved? I'll give you just one example. 90% of the world now has what they call net zero targets for carbon emissions. And when I was doing this job 15 years ago, nobody had a net zero target. It's the big changes we make that make the big difference. And leaders being in a room, face to face, that makes a difference.
Yeah. So do you want everyone to have electric vehicles by 2030?
No, because you've got to have a transition, but we will ensure that we're not selling petrol and diesel vehicles new petrol and diesel vehicles from 2030 on. People will be able to carry on getting them second hand and so on. But we've also got to make it affordable for people.
Exactly.
I wouldn't have been able to say this to you 15 years ago because frankly, solar, wind, they were more expensive than fossil fuels. But now, when they're cheaper, why would you stick with expensive, insecure fossil fuels when you can have cheaper, cleaner renewables?
So do you think we're on track to meet the 2050 timeline, or is it likely to happen?
Well, the truth is that when we came to office 4 months ago, I was told we were off track. Okay. And I'm trying to get us on track. And it's hard, but I'm confident we can do it. I want future generations to look at what I did and say, he really got the scale of the threat. I think your generation, future generations will look back at us and say, were you the last generation not to get it or the first generation to get it? And I want to be seen as the first generation to get it.
Now, what about this next story? Tuesday 19th of November is World Toilet Day, and it's no joke. Run by the United Nations, the day aims to raise awareness that a shocking 3.5 billion people around the world don't have access to a toilet, and 2.2 billion live without safe drinking water. In fact, more people have mobile phones than proper toilets. This lack of sanitation leads to the deaths of around 1,000 children under 5 every day, and the UN has called for safe toilets for all by 2030. But warns that the world is a long way off this target. Film fans will only be too aware that the new Paddington movie is in cinemas now, and FYI guest reporter Rosie went to meet the voice of Paddington, Ben Whishaw, to talk about all things marmalade.
Who's quintessentially British and loves marmalade sandwiches? It's Paddington, and he's back.
Dear Aunt Lucy, I have very important news. We're coming to Peru. Oh, help yourself.
Hi, Ben. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
My pleasure.
Paddington started his story as a stowaway and has always been a bit of an underdog. Why do you think people identify with him so much?
I think he has the spirit of optimism. Even when things are bad, he's always kind. Gives us something to aspire to be more like.
The film shows Paddington settled in London when he's originally from Peru, and he's finally got a British passport. With what's currently going on in the world, do you think there are any lessons that we can take from the film about immigration?
I think that we should just be kinder and accept what the world is, and there are people who are very vulnerable and in desperate need, and we've all got our part to play. The whole conversation about people who are, for whatever reason, fleeing their homes, and no one wants to flee their homes, Paddington didn't want to, that we should be kind and considerate and respectful.
Since Paddington is named after a train station,
Yes.
if you were to choose one to be named after, what would you choose?
One of my favourite places on the planet is a town called Glastonbury, which is a very magical place. I would be named after the nearest station to it, which is called Castle Carey.
Wow.
Get castle in my name is pretty cool.
I'd probably go with Victoria.
Would you?
It's
Name.
near the West End,
Yes,
and
yeah.
it's perfect for catching a train to the airport when I'm going home to Ireland.
You're Irish?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a quick fire round of questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm going to need a slurp of tea first. Go on.
Do you call it dinner, supper, or tea?
I like calling it tea.
Do you call it scone or do you call it scone?
I call it scone.
Scottish shortbread, Irish soda bread, Welsh cake, or English crumpet?
I'm going to say an English crumpet.
Ketchup or brown sauce?
Ketchup.
Marmalade sandwich or cucumber sandwich?
Cucumber. I don't like marmalade, sorry, it's terrible.
Sausage roll, Cornish pasty, Scotch egg, or pork pie?
Sausage roll every time, easy.
Custard or ice cream with your dessert?
Custard. Actually, both. Can I have both?
Yeah. Favorite accent? Scottish, Irish, Welsh, or English?
Irish.
That was a good one. Final thing. Paddington is known for his hard stare. Could we finish this interview with the hard stare off?
Absolutely. Should we do it with our glasses on or off?
On, I say.
Yours is better than mine. I'm actually getting hot. Yours is really good.
Thank you. So is yours.
Thank you.
That was a really cool chat with Ben. Who knew? The voice of Paddington doesn't even like marmalade sandwiches.
Oh, and remember, never touch this plant.
What's it called?
The spiky red one. Please excuse me.
Now, what did you make of the footage of a snowy owl carrying its babies on its back while in flight? Well, it's actually fake footage generated using AI. Real snowy owls keep their chicks in nests, and crucially, snowy owl chicks are actually a dark grey colour, so this is definitely a hoax. And that's all we've got time for today, but we'll catch you next week with more of the news that matters to you. See ya!